I like sassy characters when they're like, I don't want none of that business. I like those type of characters because they're just funny.
The first speaker we'll meet in this year's CMC is one of our Changemakers. You'll see and hear them throughout the conference, people with individual stories to tell. Jess Thom has a story, and she's been telling it for the last 6 years. She's a writer, artist, and apparently a part-time superhero. She co-founded Touretteshero in 2010 as a creative response to her experience of living with Tourettes Syndrome. She says Touretteshero is about reclaiming the most frequently misunderstood condition on the planet, challenging people to think differently, and building a more inclusive society, one tick at a time. Tomorrow, she joins the Creative Edge panel about diversity in the workplace. But tonight, she is Jess Thom, Touretteshero.
I love pizza. That's sort of true. Biscuit. Hello, Biscuit. I'm Jess. As Sue says, I'm an artist, a writer, and part-time superhero. Biscuit. I'm a snooker player from Halfton. I'm not, but that's quite an appropriate tick here in the Crucible. Biscuit. Biscuit. I also have Tourettes Syndrome. Biscuit. A neurological condition that means I make movements and noises I can't control, called tics. Biscuit. Having Tourette's makes me neurologically incapable of staying on message. Biscuit. So a lot of what I'm about to say will be a surprise to everyone, including me. Biscuit. On the plus side, though, it does mean I only ever have to write half a presentation. Biscuit. Gas. Biscuit. Biscuit. And awkward silences aren't something I worry about either. Biscuit. There are 3 things you need to know straight away. Biscuit. Firstly, you're going to hear the words biscuit, biscuit, and hedgehog a lot in the next 10 minutes. Biscuit. Biscuit. Secondly, several times a day, my tics intensify to a point where I completely lose control of my body and speech. Biscuit. These episodes, which I call Sebastian, no I don't. Biscuit. 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 Which I call ticking fits. Biscuit. Look seizure-like and needs similar management. Biscuit. If this happens while I'm talking, Biscuit, don't worry, that's normal for me, and my support worker will come and help me. Biscuit. And Sue will take over with a striptease. She's not going to do that. Biscuit, hedgehog, Biscuit. Finally, Biscuit, and I think you've already got this. Biscuit, if I say something funny, you're absolutely allowed to laugh. Biscuit, in fact, it'll be a bit weird if you don't. Biscuit, what excites me most about this conference is its focus on practical actions and making things happen when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Biscuit. In 2010, I co-founded Touretteshero, Biscuit, after a conversation, Biscuit, that radically changed the way I viewed my condition. Biscuit. My friend Matthew described my Tourette's as a crazy language-generating machine. Biscuit. And he told me not doing something creative with my tics would be wasteful. This idea took root, and it was how I came to understand my tics as my power and not my problem. My life was changed by a single sentence, and it taught me that every conversation, Biscuit, has the potential to create change. Biscuit, at Touretteshero, we increase understanding by sharing, Biscuit, the humour and creativity, Biscuit, of an often misunderstood condition, Biscuit, and by campaigning for a more inclusive society. Biscuit, I believe we all share the power and responsibility for inclusivity. Biscuit, legislation, resources and knowledge have important roles to play too. Biscuit. But to build sustainable, inclusive communities, we need to think, biscuit, talk, and take action together. Eat biscuits together. We can do that too. Biscuit. Hedgehog, biscuit. Biscuit. A recent report by Scope, biscuit, on public attitudes to disability found that 67% of the British people, biscuit, felt uncomfortable talking to a disabled person. Biscuit. This percentage has no place in an open, engaged society. Biscuit. And as professionals working within children's media, you're perfectly placed to make a significant contribution to catalysing much-needed social change. Biscuit. One of the great things about discussing, biscuit, disability with children, biscuit, hedgehog, is they often ask upfront questions. Biscuit, and most importantly, they listen to the answers. Biscuit, hedgehog, biscuit. As we get older, we seem to worry more about saying the wrong thing or being nosy. Biscuit, worst of all, we think we know all the answers already. Biscuit, children laugh, question and listen. Biscuit, and this is something we can all learn from. Biscuit, cats. I love hula hooping cats. They're pretty good too. Biscuit, I want to share with you an experience, biscuit, from my work at a children's play project in South London. One weekend, I was lucky enough to witness a moment that was both unremarkable, biscuit, and at the same time so beautiful, biscuit, I don't know if I'll be able to find the words to describe it. Biscuit. It was a busy Saturday. I'd just come in through the gates of the adventure playgrounds, biscuit, and there were children of all ages, biscuit, everywhere. Amidst the general buzz, biscuit, a sudden flurry of activity by the football pitch caught my attention. Biscuit. Two teenage boys greeted each other enthusiastically. Biscuit, hedgehog, throwing their arms around each other and grinning. One of the boys was holding a football, biscuit, and the other was saying, "Okay then, a quick penalty shootout before lunch." They threw down the ball, biscuit, and along with some other young people, started playing. Biscuit. This, biscuit, of course, was not, biscuit, remarkable. It was a very ordinary scene, biscuit, and could have happened anywhere. But it's that very ordinariness, biscuit, that makes it so special. One of the young men had a learning disability, and the other doesn't. Biscuit. They go to different schools and probably would have never met, biscuit, if it weren't for the inclusion project at the playground. Biscuit. This moment hadn't seemed significant to me, biscuit, until I heard actor Idris Elba, biscuit, addressing MPs about the lack of diversity, biscuit, in film and TV a few days later. He said, there was a disconnect between the real world and the TV world. Biscuit. And he went on to say, the people in the TV world are often not the same people in the real world. Biscuit. Biscuit. That ordinary moment at the playground is what my real world looks like. It's what the world looks like for many children and young people in this country. But all too often, it's not reflected on screen. Biscuit. Idris's speech was particularly powerful because it didn't focus on just one characteristic. He explains, diversity in the model world, biscuit, is more than just skin colour. It's gender, age, disability, biscuit, sexual orientation, cats, possibly, biscuit, social background, biscuit, and most importantly of all, diversity of thought. Biscuit. He said, talent is everywhere, biscuit, but opportunity isn't. And this gets right to the heart of the issue. Biscuit. If you're not white, male or non-disabled, biscuit, you're likely to face many barriers within film and television, biscuit. Barriers that are echoed within wider society, biscuit. Unchecked, this lack of diversity becomes self-perpetuating. Biscuit, if you don't see yourself represented on screen, biscuit, you're much less likely to think TV is a possibility for you. If drama schools, biscuit, are financially inaccessible and political policies continue to strip support from poor and disabled students, our social institutions, biscuit, won't ever be inclusive, biscuit. And if actors, directors, producers and writers, biscuit, don't experience difference at the start of their careers, biscuit, how can they be expected to consider it, biscuit, within their practice later on, biscuit. A lack of diversity in front of the cameras, as well as behind them, biscuit, means that limited stereotyped parts for actors who aren't heteronormative white males are inevitable. It also leads, biscuit, to non-disabled actors playing disabled roles and being praised for how well they mimic disability or crip up. Biscuit. While I believe that children's media, biscuit, is leading the industry in changing this, it's not a time to be complacent. Biscuit, there are still too many people, biscuit, who don't see themselves reflected on screen. And this is bad for the industry, and it's bad for us all. Biscuit, a wealth of talent and creativity is going to waste. Biscuit, and seeing the same old stories by the same old people, biscuit, over and over again gets boring. Biscuit, this represents a financial as well as a social and moral risk for the industry. It's time for us to recognise, biscuit, the opportunities we're missing by failing to embrace diversity. Biscuit, thinking openly about the potential of broader stories and finding ways to connect talent and opportunity, biscuit, will lead to a richer, stronger, biscuit, and more dynamic sector. Biscuit, I want the children and young people I work with, biscuit, to know that all possibilities are open to them. Biscuit, I want them to see people who look, sound or move like they do. Biscuit, in succeeding in all sorts of different roles. Biscuit, the two boys on the football pitch could easily, biscuit, not have met, biscuit, and their experiences remained invisible to each other. Biscuit, it's only through increased visibility of difference, whether it's in our communities or on our screens, that discrimination and assumptions can be broken down and equality of opportunity made achievable. Biscuit, I'd like to leave you with 3 ideas, biscuit, that have made a big difference, biscuit, in how I think about disability and my identity. Biscuit, the first is that I'm not disabled by my body. Biscuit, people are often nervous about calling me disabled because they view it as a negative term. Biscuit, I don't see it that way at all. Biscuit, because I understand it within the context of the social model of disability. Saying I'm disabled doesn't mean I'm less able than anyone else. It means I'm often prevented from functioning, biscuit, by a society that places social, structural, biscuit, and attitudinal barriers in my way. Only if these barriers are acknowledged, biscuit, can they be changed. Biscuit. Secondly, the role of collaboration. Touretteshero works collaboratively, biscuit, because it makes what we do stronger. Biscuit, cats. Through our partnerships, we educate and learn at the same time, finding new avenues to explore. Biscuit, collaboration across disciplines offers opportunities for innovation, biscuit, and new thinking. Biscuit. Finally, creating change isn't always a battle. Biscuit, I used to think attitude change was a long, drawn-out process. Biscuit, hedgehog, Touretteshero has taught me how quick it can be. Biscuit, and it often starts, biscuit, with a single conversation. Biscuit. Creating change doesn't have to be a battle. It can be joyful. Biscuit. Persuasive, discursive and silly. Biscuit. Hedgehog. The work you're doing is crucial for shaping sustainable social change. By embedding inclusivity within everything you do, you have the opportunity to create a more equitable and open society. Making the world more inclusive isn't too mighty a task, and it's definitely not something we should leave to institutions, politicians, or people wearing capes. Biscuit. Biscuit. It's something we can all do. Biscuit. If you'd like to find out more about Touretteshero, please visit Touretteshero.com, Biscuit, or come and speak to me afterwards. Biscuit. I'll be the one shouting Biscuit. Biscuit. Thank you. Biscuit.